Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Red Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Coltin Schachtner, and today we have a familiar face with Austin Koch. How's it going today?
It's going good, Colton. Thanks for having me.
You bet. You enjoying this heat?
Oh, yeah. It's nice to get some heat units.
Definitely. So we earlier this year talked about EarthOptics and our partnership with EarthOptics through REDSTAR. And let's just start at the beginning with what does EarthOptics offer the farmers through REDSTAR, and how can that help them succeed?
Yep. So EarthOptics, we're a soil intelligence company, and we've partnered with REDSTAR to offer the growers, our agronomy platform, which is True Till, True Bio, and True Nutrient. And it really gives us a look at how do we place products more precisely on a per acre basis, whether that's fertility, biologicals, seed, or maybe even a compaction recommendation.
Perfect. And we've been using those this year, whether it be through our RX360 Pro with the Ground Owl or the RX360 Pro with the Till Mapper. And it's been very successful, the data we're getting back from it. And one of the parts I love the most is it's unique because, like, we look at the Till Mapper, you guys are the only ones who can make a variable rate script for certain pieces of equipment for tillage.
Yeah, so we're the only ones in the market that have a variable rate compaction, inch by inch layer down to 18 inches. So we can have a variable depth, variable rate tillage prescription for that grower.
Perfect. So as we've been going through the year and you guys have got your predictive ag report out now, what are some of the things that you guys have seen that are going to be major issues moving forward, even to later this year?
Yeah, when we look at the predictive ag report, it's very referenced on the different locations that you are in. So, tar spot's a big one. We've been kind of seeing that creep up year in and year out. Just walking fields, you kind of look at that disease triangle. So the pathogens here. Mm-hmm. I haven't been seeing a lot of that tar spot this year as previous years, but, we have that pathogen. If those conditions are right, it's really going to blow up. Bacterial leaf streaks having a year. Saw that in a lot of our testing, seeing that in a lot of fields. So that's definitely correlating to, what we've seen.
Perfect. Have you seen much crown rot or anything to do with fusarium or gibberella yet this year?
Yeah, so high fusarium rates. That's also something that's creeping up. That's something that starts at the seedling stage. So something that we need to be mitigating at the in-furrow application at plant. Not seeing a whole lot of stock rot issues yet, but that's going to creep up the further we get into harvest.
Definitely. And that was one last year with that in-furrow mitigation that we did. Our in-furrow fungicide plot had tremendous success with it, more than we ever expected from some of the stuff that's very affordable. But yeah, that solidified it to us here at REDSTAR is we saw the data, we saw what we could do to treat it, and then we got the yield results.
Absolutely. And, fusarium is one of those things that when we're really looking at it, and we've had plenty of results through our grower initiative, we can see up to a 50 bushel yield difference in a high versus a low risk field. And we kind of expect that to be about a 33, roughly, depending on where you're located, bushel response on corn. And with that in-furrow trial, we saw an average of 18, but on that top end, we saw 27 bushel an acre yield difference between the check and the top performing products. So it really solidifies what we're doing at EarthOptics and what kind of data we've gathered. No product's going to be the perfect product. Mm-hmm. I think ideally we'd get that 33 bushel, up to that 50, but getting 27 on that top product shows just how important an in-furrow product is if we are, having issues like fusarium, gibberella, some of those seedling rots, and diseases.
Yeah, and one thing I know people talk about, well, I shouldn't have a problem with fusarium. It's on the seed treatment. And obviously you don't sell inputs, but what do you guys think the reason that some of these seedling inputs inputs on the seed, why they're getting overrun?
Yeah, so, you look at farming as total. Corn plant is a living species. Everything we throw at it, it's always going to learn how to adapt and overcome. Seed treatments today aren't as effective as they were, 20 years ago. We can say the same thing for Roundup, same thing for anything that we continue to apply year in and year out. So look at corn rootworm. We're doing a triple stack plus a soil applied insecticide. Bug bomb, we're throwing a lot at a corn rootworm species because they keep adapting and overcoming what we're throwing at it. Same thing goes with like things like fusarium. I think we need to have the seed treatment plus probably something in furrow to help mitigate that stressor. So all of this stuff's living organisms. We're always going to have stuff that we need to adapt to overcome. Not saying we need to throw everything at it, but we need to throw new things at it so we keep it honest.
Perfect. And with that predictive ag report, and this really plays into the RX360 Pro with the ground owl, there were some nutrients in there, both on corn and soybeans, that showed tremendous yield responses. Can you just touch a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll go kind of touch base on both crops. So potassium's a huge added input. We saw, on soybeans how important that truly is. I think we were about 11 bushels an acre if we had super low potassium levels and we, versus the high potassium. So that's a huge yield difference where we really want to have good potassium levels if we're going into a soybean crop. Corn, the big one there was boron. Boron, I think we saw over a 50 bushel an acre difference between super low levels and, adequate levels. And when we're talking about boron there, we're looking at that high risk. So it's a very low amount of boron. So we're talking, I think, 0.25 parts per million of boron. So, that's an extremely low level of boron, but it does show the importance of some of these micronutrients and how it affects a corn yield.
Yeah, definitely. And the nice part is you guys got an AI supercomputer backing all this to do some of this data sifting. Can you just talk a little bit about how that just allows you to be so much more efficient with the recommendations that you give through the dashboard based upon all that?
Yeah, so I guess, talking a little bit about AI, I'm going to go attack that on a couple different fronts. So like our ground owl units that we have on the front of our side-by-sides, that's basically a very expensive metal detector. So we're looking at all the different soil properties that are existing within that soil. And it's basically, we're using EMI technology that we're utilizing. And we're pairing that with ground truth measurements throughout that field, whether that is a compaction or moisture reading, or if that's a nutrient reading that we're tying with the high-res nutrient results. And then we're also using machine learning. So machine learning is basically every acre that we're growing across, that data gets more and more impactful and smarter. So, when we look at that, that's how we're leveraging AI into that, the true nutrient in the ground owl. It's getting more and more smart. And then on the dashboard side, we're using it a little bit, and we're kind of making it a little bit smarter. So if you've ever used like ChatGPT, Gemini, something like those lines, something that we're adding to our dashboard here is like, hey, I have fusarium in my field. So you type that onto our dashboard. What can I do to mitigate that? Or what are some different strategies? We're adding kind of prompts that you can just do right in our dashboard. And then also our crop planning tool. It's not necessarily AI, but it's a lot of coding features that we've put together, and we've added all the different products that are in the industry. So at a click of the button, based off of what threats you're facing, we can help mitigate those risks. So like, let's say we have a high risk analytic in the field. A product will help mitigate that and drop that. And the goal of that is how can we get our open risk in a field down to zero? And also on that same token is like, how can we do that with the same passes that we're already doing? So, seed selection, trait selection, what kind of crop protection products or biological products do we want to add out there as well? Okay,
perfect. And with, like you said, it's always growing. And this year we have quite a few new metrics coming. So I know you can't talk about all of them yet, but the ones you can, I'd like you to share. But I want you to go back to what you guys told us earlier of how many different data points it takes before you enter one metric into the system.
So, in a pound of soil, when we bring that to the lab, do a DNA analysis on it. So what we do at EarthOptics on the bio side is metagenomics. So it's basically doing a DNA analysis of that soil, looking at all the different pests, pathogens, diseases, biofertility metrics. 1 pound of soil, we get over about 10 million reads. So we get a bunch of data. Our database has terabasins of data. So like huge data. And what we've been able to do with that is really understand, okay, what are these metrics actually relate to yield? Is it a yield gainer? Is it a yield robber? Or does it just kind of a filler? I would say a majority of that soil, we don't even know yet. But the things that we do know, we know how it relates to yield, whether it's something that's going to help us gain yield or something that's, robbing us of that yield.
Perfect. And the nice part is you've got hundreds of thousands of acres to verify and back check your data with.
Yeah. So cool thing since I was here last, we just crossed 5 million acres mapped, analyzed, and understood throughout the whole U.S. Corn Belt. So that's something that's a huge accomplishment because, what you want to see with a company like us is, continued growth and continued understanding of that soil. And it's really fine-tuned where we're at. And I'm really excited. The more data that we do, and the great team our data science does, we were able to add new analytics. And, we're adding a couple new crops this fall, as well as some more soil health and biofertility measurements that I'm really excited about.
Perfect. So let's get into the analytics you can share.
Yeah, so, cool. The really big one that I'm really excited about is some of the biofertility ones.
Okay.
So we're adding bacterial to fungi ratio, which is going to be a really good one to look at and, help make better decisions on biological placement. And then as well as like our anaerobic decomposition factors. So, products that you can, stock digest. So we're looking at about 4 different metrics there. So we're looking at lignin breakdown, cellulose breakdown, small carbon metabolism, and chitinase. So looking at those 4 metrics, we can really understand, what type of product do we need to put out there as far as breaking down that residue. And if you look across the countryside, there is a lot of plants out there this year. Mm-hmm. So, you get into the field, some of the areas look a little bit better than others, but I think it's widely known that we have some big plants across the whole country. I think that's going to be an important metric to really understand because, if we do need to, break down this residue that's out there in these fields, we need to find out what product's going to work the best. Mm-hmm. And also, do we need to put that out in our field?
Yeah. Does the soil already do it?
Yep.
Perfect. And one of my favorite parts about it is you're coming out with all these new metrics. So somebody might be saying, well, damn it, I shouldn't have done it last year. I should do it this year. Well, can you just talk about how once it gets in there, it will backdate that onto your sample?
Yeah, so everything's cloud-based within our platform. So all of our bio test, it'll actually go back to, the test that we had taken. Since it's all cloud-based, once we add a new metric into our platform, it'll show those values. So point in being, it's like, hey, we had this issue. What was it? And then it could be something as simple as, oh, maybe that's why that product works so well. Because when we took those tests 2 years ago, we didn't even think about breakdown. Mm-hmm. And, now we understand why it works so much better on this specific field versus another field.
Perfect. Now, I know a lot of guys, dollars are tight on the farm. And for a premium form of soil sampling, what would you tell a grower today on why they should spend the extra money, even though it's not really that much extra money, but why should they spend the extra money to upgrade to an EarthOptics style sampling?
Yeah, so the RX program basically sets the foundation for that upcoming crop year. Margins are tight. Do we need that trait, or what type of products do we need to put out there? When I look at the high-res nutrients and the bio put together, so the RX 360, really looking at, where do I need to apply my dollars? Do I really need to continue to put so many pounds of MAP out there, potash? What are my P&K levels at that high-res level? And also looking at the biology. There might be fields where we're just have a couple foliar diseases where we can get away with a generic fungicide versus the premium. There might be fields where a biological would really, really benefit that operation. So every field's unique. Every field's different. I would really recommend going with the bio test on every acre going into this year. I think it's more important this year than most years just because it is so tight. We need to make sure we're putting the right amount of money on the right acre.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that you can't fix what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Anything else that we should know about EarthOptics going into this year?
Yeah, looking at that nutrient side, I know you guys have a fair amount of business in Northwest Iowa. Just kind of want to throw out there that we are DNR certified. So if you have any manure management plans, we can suffice for those. So that's kind of a big deal, especially for some of those Iowan growers that have to get manure management certified. As far as getting into the fall, one thing that really helps simplify our process is getting orders in early. So, once your combine's rolled through, we already know that those fields are available, so we can have samplers in your area in a timely manner.
Perfect. And that's one key part that you're probably not getting from a lot of other people is the text notifications.
Yeah, so we'll text you, when your field, when we're about to be out there, and like when the result process are going through. So, we'll say, hey, your results are ready. And it might just be your nutrient results, but it'll text you an alert that your results are ready. And then it'll text you another alert, hey, results are complete. So that's when all your biological results are in. Kind of hairy. Sometimes it'll say when the samplers are going to be out there. Sometimes it won't. So I don't know. There's a little tweaks there that I think sometimes miss, but usually the results, once those are delivered, it gives you a notification saying, hey, these are ready. Go out there and look at them.
And it's you personally sending all the texts, right?
No, we have that automated.
Perfect. And what's your normal turnaround? Say it's early harvest. You're not in the heat of it yet. We put in a field market ready to go. What's the timetable from a sampler getting out there to a grower receiving their results?
Yep. So right now we're just getting like oats harvest, wheat harvest kind of completed. Silage will probably start picking up here in the next couple weeks. So right now we are a little bit slower because it's not our peak time in the lab. So I would say turnaround time results are a little bit slower this time of year. But once we get into the peak of harvest, let's talk late September, October, November. As far as getting a sampler assigned to that field, we assign a sampler within 24 hours. So we have basically a web of partners that we have, and then we also have a team of about 10 field techs that are internal employees that their sole job is sampling fields. So they're very professional, and they can go out there and get them done in a timely manner. We have those spread throughout the Midwest, and then our service partners are also spread throughout the Midwest, so they can accept a job within 24 hours, and we want to have it assigned within that time. Typically, they'll be out in that field within 3 to 5 days, just depending. We've had fields before where that guy's out there the same day just because he's right next to it. But 3 to 5 days typically for a sampler to get out there. We ship all of our samples to one of our labs, either in Memphis, Tennessee or Emeryville, California, just depending on what's going on there. I would say for a nutrient turnaround time, we're looking at about 5 days.
Okay.
3 to 5 days. And then bio would be 7 to 10.
Okay. Perfect. So about industry average on the nutrient, and obviously a lot more work goes into the bio than a standard nutrient.
Yeah. The DNA test is a little bit more turnaround time than your typical nutrient just because you are doing a DNA analysis on that soil. And it just takes a little bit longer. Also, I forgot about the tillage component. That is an instant within 24 hours.
Okay.
So you scan the field, the ADCP points and the moisture points are taken throughout that field. Then we go through a data review, make sure, we had a good scan path, had good coverage. So once that's all put together and it's approved, you usually see that within 24 hours of the field tech being out there.
Perfect. And we've probably talked about this in the past, but let's talk about the sampling intensity because it is on another level.
Yeah, so I'll start on the bio side just because that's the thing that, we really want to make sure that we're detecting all the DNA in that field. Things like cyst nematode, sudden death, corn rootworm, they're in pockets throughout that field. So our typical zone size on a bio field is 16 to 24 acres per zone. And within that 16 to 24 acres, we're taking a core roughly every acre. And the big thing, it's spread through that composite zone, and we want to make sure that we pick up any DNA that's out there because we really want to have accurate and crisp results for that field. When we look at true nutrient and true till, that sampling protocol is very similar together. So we have grid points at a 5 to 10 acre density throughout that field. I target closer to that 5. It's going to be the same price per acre. And then we are scanning at a 60-foot wide swath with that ground owl unit. And when we compile those two sets of data together, that's what generates that high-res map, that 1,000 square foot grid.
In that high-res map, you can export almost any way you can imagine.
Yeah, CSV, shape file. We have connections with John Deere, CNH, FieldView, and Ag Leaders. So like if you're using one of those systems, it can be kind of a plug-and-play back and forth. Obviously, a shape file, CSV file are easy to kind of push through.
Yeah, and you can make, on the dashboard, one thing you can do as well is create your own recs. And that was the part I found really cool last year is you get it back, and a lot of these spreaders are on a 60 or an 80-foot swath. Well, you can create the zone to be a 60 or 80-foot swath as you go through the field.
Yeah, so with those high-res maps, we can do the 10 by 10 meter, 60 foot by 60 foot, 80 feet by 80 feet. And we also have some prescription builders for like seed recommendations based off those results. So maybe you want to base that off your CEC or something along those lines. You know, an 80 foot wide, that's 32 rows of corn. So from a seeding standpoint, it's really crisp if you're doing those 80 foot by 80 feet, just because, you know, that's how wide your planter equipment is on a double pass. So just, it's really crisp. On the nutrient side, we're adding some stuff there too I forgot to talk about. So you're gonna have the ability to add your own formula in there.
Okay.
So right now we have, you know, Iowa State, Tri-State, SDSU, Minnesota, 4 university recommendations. We have that ability to add in your own custom recommendations. So like if you have your own formula, we can throw that into the system and then export those prescriptions.
Awesome. That's going to be a game changer in that.
Yeah, so that's one thing that we didn't talk about, but that's one of the new things coming, you know, September 1st that I'm really, really excited about. And they're just going to make the overall experience on the scripting side even better. And that's kind of our key focus in the next, you know, future months, is like, hey, how can we make this just the best experience ever for a prescription?
Definitely. So is there anything else that you think that people need to know about EarthOptics?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, hey, let's try it on your own field. There's a lot of stuff that people are trying to get sold year in and year out. I truly believe on this product. I'm using it on my own farm, and we've grown to be on a lot of farms and a lot of acres. You know, it's going to be insights that you haven't seen before, and it's really going to help you build a crop plan for next year and place products, seed, and anything else that you can think of just a little bit better and more strategic.
Perfect. Well, thanks for your time today, Austin. If you have any more questions about the RX360, go to redstarne.com or reach out to your REDSTAR rep. The Red Effect podcast is brought to you by REDSTAR. REDSTAR, where our red makes you green.